Shaka's legacy. Shaka's legacy is a combination of both admiration and fear. He is credited with uniting the Zulu people and creating a military system that made them one of the most formidable forces in southern Africa. His reign led to what is known as the Mfikane, or the Crushing, a period of chaos and warfare among the indigenous peoples of southern Africa. Shaka Zulu, one of Africa's most famous military leaders, fought numerous battles that helped expand and consolidate the Zulu kingdom. His strategic innovations and tactical genius transformed the Zulu army into a formidable force, allowing him to conquer neighboring clans and establish dominance over a large portion of southern Africa. Below are some of the notable battles and military campaigns led by Shaka. 1. Battle against the Ndwandwe, 1818 to 1819. One of Shaka's most famous military encounters was his series of battles against the Ndwandwe, a powerful kingdom led by King Zwide. The Ndwandwe were the main rivals of the Zulu, and their conflict was central to shaping the political landscape of southern Africa. Battle of Cockley Hill, 1818. This was a key battle in the conflict between Shaka and Zwide. The Ndwandwe outnumbered the Zulu forces, but Shaka's use of strategy, particularly the bullhorn formation, a tactic where forces were divided into three parts: the main force, the chest, flanking units, the horns, and a reserve force, the loins, turned the tide of the battle. Despite being vastly outnumbered, Shaka lured Zwide's forces into a trap at Cockley Hill, inflicting heavy casualties on the Ndwandwe and securing a decisive victory. Battle of Mlato's River, 1819. After the initial defeat at Cockley Hill, Zwide launched another major offensive against Shaka. However, this also ended in disaster for the Ndwandwe, as they were defeated in the Battle of the Mlato's River. Shaka used the river's geography to outmaneuver and overwhelm Zwide's forces, causing the Ndwandwe kingdom to fracture. After this defeat, Zwide's kingdom collapsed, and many of his people were absorbed into the expanding Zulu kingdom. 2. Conquest of the Mthethwa, after 1817. Before Shaka became king of the Zulu, he served under Dingiswayo, the leader of the Mthethwa kingdom. Dingiswayo was a mentor to Shaka and helped him hone his military skills. When Dingiswayo was killed by Zwide of the Ndwandwe, Shaka took command of the Mthethwa forces and later absorbed them into his own growing Zulu kingdom. This unification significantly strengthened Shaka's military base and allowed him to take revenge on the Ndwandwe. 3. Campaigns against smaller neighboring clans. Shaka expanded his kingdom through a series of smaller military campaigns against neighboring clans, many of which were absorbed into the Zulu kingdom. These campaigns were often swift and brutal, with Shaka's army using his signature tactics to overwhelm their opponents. The Kwabe, Hlubi, and Mpondo were among the numerous smaller clans that fell under Shaka's rule. In many cases, the defeated clans either submitted to Zulu control or faced total destruction. Conquest of the Buthelezi clan. The Buthelezi clan, led by Chief Fokothweyo, initially resisted Shaka's advances. However, Shaka's superior military tactics eventually subdued the Buthelezi, who became a subordinate group within the Zulu Empire. 4. The Mfikane Crushing. Period. The Mfikane, or Zdifakane in Sotho, meaning the crushing or scattering, was a period of widespread warfare and chaos in southern Africa, triggered in part by Shaka's conquests and the collapse of rival kingdoms like the Ndwandwe. As Shaka expanded the Zulu kingdom, many smaller groups were displaced or annihilated, and others migrated to escape his rule. This created ripple effects across the region, with massive upheavals as displaced tribes either fled or were forced to become militarized to defend themselves. 5. Defensive battles against the British, 1820s. While Shaka's reign preceded direct large-scale military conflicts with the British, he did have encounters with European settlers in the 1820s. Shaka was cautious and aware of the growing British presence along the eastern coast of South Africa, particularly in Port Natal, modern-day Durban. He established relations with the British, allowing them to establish a trading post but kept a watchful eye on their movements. Though Shaka did not engage in full-scale war with the British, later Zulu kings, like King Cetshwayo, Shaka's nephew, would go on to fight the British in the Anglo-Zulu War of 1879, long after Shaka's death. 6. Campaign against the Swazi, circa 1827. Shaka also launched military campaigns against the Swazi people, who lived to the north of the Zulu kingdom. Although the Swazi were eventually forced into an alliance with Shaka, the relations were uneasy, with the Swazi maintaining a degree of autonomy. 7. Final years and internal conflicts. Toward the end of his reign, Shaka faced growing dissent within his own kingdom. His grief over his mother's death and increasing paranoia led to harsh policies, causing unrest among his people. He became more tyrannical, which eventually led to his assassination by his half-brothers, Dingain and Mlingana, in 1828. Shaka's military innovations. Shaka's battles were defined not just by the victories themselves, but by the revolutionary tactics he introduced. Ikawa, Shaka replaced the traditional long-throwing spear, assegai, with a short stabbing spear, ikawa, which allowed for close combat and gave his warriors an advantage in hand-to-hand fighting. Bullhorn formation. His famous battlefield tactic involved encircling the enemy with a main frontal attack, the chest, and two flanking wings, the horns, while the reserve force, the loins, waited to reinforce or pursue retreating enemies. Mobility and endurance. Shaka had his warriors march barefoot to toughen their feet, enabling them to move swiftly and cover long distances with speed and stealth. These innovations and strategic insights allowed Shaka to dominate southern Africa during his reign, and his legacy as a military genius continues to be celebrated today. Shaka's life ended in tragedy, betrayed by his half-brothers Dingain and Mlingana, who feared his growing paranoia and violent rule. They assassinated him in 1828, marking the end of his reign, but not his legacy. Even after his death, Shaka's influence continued to shape the Zulu kingdom, which remained powerful for years to come. Conclusion. Shaka Zulu remains one of Africa's most iconic historical figures. His story is not only a tale of military conquest and nation-building, but also a reflection of how a leader's personal strength, vision, and emotional turmoil can impact the course of history. In the collective memory of South Africa, Shaka is both a hero and a tragic figure whose brilliance was shadowed by his intense and often violent rule.